What it do, H-Town? I'm Nick Stevenson, a.k.a. the president of Houston Sports. He is Ruben Calvillo, a.k.a. Mr. 713. This is the Twin Toros podcast. Let's get it. Okay, Ruben, the first thing I want to say to you, sir, is congratulations. This is our first video that is in collaboration with ESPN Houston. It is such a privilege to be there. Obviously, you and I were both contestants in the Rock the Mic. We went from foes to family, I like to say. And so we made the effort, thanks to ESPN. They said, why don't you two guys link together? We made this podcast called the Twin Toros. We're both huge Texans fans. I want to give you an opportunity briefly to introduce yourself to our new audience and let them know where they can find all your stuff, man.
Yeah, man. My name is Ruben Calvillo. You can find me on YouTube, just 713 Houston Sports at YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. It's 713 Houston Sports as well. Drop daily Houston Texans content, man. I'm ready to get into it, and I am getting ready and looking forward to spending the rest of this season with ESPN 97.5.
Absolutely, man. What a privilege. And you guys can find me at Houston Sports State of the Union on YouTube. I will have all of our links in the description. Actually, I'll put both of our link trees in the description of this video so you can find all of our content. Ruben, I wish we were starting ESPN on a higher note after a win. But listen, man, when you're H-Town till you drown, that means you got to go through the hard times too, buddy. And we've been through plenty. And at the end of the day, I think as bad as this loss was for the Houston Texans, I'm going to try to add some perspective to it by the end of this video to get us ready to go into Jacksonville, who they're having a tough day today too. So let's get into this thing though, man. Texans versus Vikings. We talked about it in our last video. The Texans never had beaten the Vikings, and that losing streak continues, man. 34-7. It was painful, man. And there's a lot of blame to go around, and I think a lot of Houston Texans fans are obviously disappointed. What I want to do, sir, I want to give you the opportunity to get it off your chest, man. Tell me how you feel about it. Tell me what you're thinking now that you've processed it. I know you've watched the game a couple of times. Give me your overall assessment against Week 3 from the Houston Texans. I mean, about Week 3.
Just an embarrassing and disappointing loss, right? When you only put up 7 points and you allow the opponent to put up 34, and you had no, moment in the game where you felt like the Houston Texans were in control. The Houston Texans were going to, claw their way back in. Just one of the toughest losses in the DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud era. I am putting this game up there with the Carolina Panthers game because that was a rough one. And here we are again. However, 2-1. So there's still a lot of some positives that we can go on, but it won't be off of this Week 3 game because it was horrible, like I mentioned. Let's start with the offense. Let's start with the offensive line. How embarrassing is it to have 4 penalties when the Houston Texan offense was marching? And it started with the false start from Titus Howard. Then it was a false start by Juice Scruggs. Then it was a false start by Laramie Tunsil. Then it was an illegal formation by Laramie Tunsil. By the 4th one, because I was streaming the game here, I stood up, threw this beautiful hat on the ground in disgust because I cannot believe what I was watching. And here's the thing, because now we can get into it. When you look at the offensive line, you look at your left tackle, you look at number 78, and when you hear what he said about the false start, this is from Aaron Wilson. I want people to understand we all have to be on the same communication. I'll take accountability because they're calling my name, but it takes all of us. That doesn't sound like a captain. There was no accountability there from Laramie Tunsil. All he's saying was, yeah, I'll take the rap just because it's my number being called by the ref. And then he continues, right? They tried to make an example out of us. The first 2 weeks we lined up the same with no problem. Now it's a problem. I feel like someone told them to make an example out of us. Gotta call it the same both sides. Who made the call, Laramie Tunsil? Who has it out for this Houston Texan offensive line? And when you look at the way these first 3 games have gone. You can see multiple penalties from this offensive line, multiple false starts from number 78, Laramie Tunsil. This isn't new with Laramie.
Yeah.
We've been seeing these false starts since the Monday Night Football game in his Houston Texans debut against the New Orleans Saints.
Yep.
It started then, and it's still here today. Now, all those false starts are fine and dandy when you're a losing team and 7 wins in 2 years and 2 one-and-done head coaches. Those false starts are okay because we don't care about them. But when you have Super Bowl aspirations, when you want to get to your first ever AFC championship and you see penalties like this should scare you going forward. And this is a captain. This is someone who is quick to put the eye emoji every time a tackle gets paid. He is quick to complain about him not having the all-pro selection that he's been searching for his entire career. But you don't want to take accountability for the false starts. You want to say it's all of us collectively. Come on now.
Yeah.
And it's Titus Howard also. And like Laramie said, it's not all Laramie Tunsil. His entire offensive line was bad. CJ Stroud was pressured on 44.2% of his dropbacks. Shaq Mason is playing horrible. Titus Howard is playing horrible. Look, we're talking about Laramie, Shaq, and Titus. You know what's the main thing in common with them? All 3 of them got 3-year extensions from general manager Nick Caserio. You should not have these problems on the offensive line.
Yeah. I've argued with quite a few people, man. The Texans have invested a lot.
Well, what are their arguments? What's there to argue about?
There's people arguing with me that the Texans haven't invested enough in the offensive line.
Okay, all right. Let's run through it. So
you got
it was
2 first-round picks
for Laramie,
and
a 3-year, $75 million contract extension.
Mm-hmm.
A first-round pick for Kenyon Green a couple of years ago. You traded up in the second round last year to get Juice Scruggs in the second round. You traded for Shaq Mason and gave him a 3-year, $36 million deal. You spent a first-round pick on Titus Howard, and you gave him a 3-year, $56 million deal. How much more investment do you need?
Not to mention Fisher in the second round last year. And we drafted Patterson in the 5th or 6th round. They have put so much into this offensive line. And I put it in the AFC South war zone last night. With all of that investment in the offensive line, it should not be that bad. And there's plenty of blame to go around, but I'm going to start with our captain, the guy who's wearing a C on his chest. You're 100% right. The statement he made to Aaron Wilson was completely void of leadership. Even if it is true that it's not just you. As a leader, as a captain, you are supposed to fall on the sword for your teammates because you are the captain. And everything they do is a reflection of your leadership. You didn't see D'Amico Ryans come out and point the finger at anybody, did you? As a matter of fact, he said that one line that honestly Texans fans probably hate to hear because we heard it so much in the bad years with Gary Kubiak. It starts with me. Blame it on me. I got to be better. We heard that an awful lot. And I want to get to that a little bit later when we talk about D'Amico Ryans, but I want to keep it with the players right now. Laramie Tunsil was bad, bro. He got flagged 6 times. And, you talked about those 4 straight penalties. Juice Scruggs got called for a false start for whipping his head. And he did the exact same thing on the very next play. The only reason he didn't get called for it is because Laramie Tunsil jumped off sides. It was ridiculous, man. It was just complete lack of discipline. That is not what we saw from this Texans team last season. And like you said, it is disconcerting. But honestly, man, when you look at the game all around, and I watched the game back a couple of times, and I was down on the defense at first until I realized, man, the offense put them in terrible positions.
Yep.
I mean, the Vikings only had 274 yards of offense, 181 yards passing by Sam Darnold, but he threw 4 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, he only had, hold on, I got it right here. My apologies. I know this is terrible.
It wasn't 100. It was probably 86.
Yeah, it was less than 90. I know that. I know people were complaining that he was going wherever he wanted to, and that the Texans weren't pressing him. But honestly, man, I was mad about that in the moment, but that's not why you lost this game. You lost this game because offensively, you couldn't do anything. And I've heard a lot of people calling Bobby Slowick's name. This is what I'm going to say to you, man. And I'll let you talk about Bobby Slowick. Until the players are actually executing his game plan, I can't give you an assessment of whether he's calling the right plays or not, because the players are not playing. Players have to play. You can blame the coaches all you want, and I'm not absolving them of responsibility. But at the end of the day, there's 11 guys on the field who are supposed to execute, and we're not seeing that on this Texans offense right now.
I mean, you could kind of pin it on both. I'm not on the fire Bobby Slowick train just yet, right? Like a lot of Houston Texans fans are. But he is on suspect watch because in week one,
that is
you were
insane
able
to
to
me.
run the ball with Joe Mixon. You know what you weren't able to do? You weren't able to pass the ball effectively. In the game against Chicago, you couldn't do neither. It was only CJ Stroud and Nico that day. In this game, once again, you saw an inconsistent offensive performance. This is what we've been waiting for, Nick. We've been waiting for this offensive line to be healthy. They're there. We've been waiting to see these wide receivers get active. They're there in the game, but they just have yet to have that big offensive explosion. So it's hard not for me to put blame on Bobby Slowick, which is why I'm also putting the blame on these players as well. But with our offense, it seems like we're trying to have these long developing plays down the field, and our offensive line simply cannot hold. Why are you leaving Cade Stover to block Jonathan Grenard one-on-one multiple times? Why can you not have a consistent running game where it's the Shanahan system and everyone can get a consistent running game out of the Shanahan system, except for Bobby Slowick? And shout out to the group chat who brought that up on the Twitter space, Barrett and Pastor and them. Dude, it's been a disappointment for this Houston Texan offense, as well as the offensive line. You have to look at everyone. I mean, honestly, the one person that I'm not going to blame is number 7, CJ Stroud.
No, I agree with you, man. And don't get me wrong, I'm not absolving Bobby Slowick or D'Amico Ryans from any responsibility in this. This is what I'm going to say, though. Any Houston Texans fan or anybody in the NFL who's saying fire Bobby Slowick after 3 weeks, that's insane to me. This man was just supposedly the second coming of Sean McVay 3 weeks ago, before the season started. Now, listen, the Texans last year, and I'm going to get into this, the Texans last year exceeded all of our expectations. Bobby Slowick exceeded all of our expectations. Now he's 3 weeks into a season, and we talked about this in the offseason. There is merit to the fact that the NFL has got tape on Bobby Slowick now. The NFL has got tape on CJ Stroud now. So last year, Bobby Slowick was able to run his offense and was relatively unknown what he was going to do. And he did a fantastic job. We have got to give Bobby Slowick the opportunity now to adjust to the adjustments that the rest of the league has made on his offense. I'm not saying that he doesn't need to be better. He absolutely needs to be better. Like you said, some of these blocking schemes, it looks like the offensive line doesn't know what they're doing. That's on him. That's on the offensive line coach. And at the end of the day, because he's the head coach, that falls on D'Amico Ryans. What I want to say is you brought up the expectations. And, I've seen some people posting this meme. It's got Jerry the mouse, and he's asleep with his Texans blanket on. And in the background, it has the AFC South standings, and it shows the Texans at the top, and Jerry's sleeping comfortably, as to say, hey, man, we're still at the top of the division. I'm not worried. With all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, that's not the standard for these Houston Texans anymore.
No, we're not. We're not going to be okay with just getting by. We're not going to be okay with just winning the division. Like, we have Super Bowl aspirations. That's why you see the Houston Texans do all these things in the offseason. Get Danielle Hunter, get Stephon Diggs, get Joe Mixon, get 4 brand new uniforms, have a whole hype video from J.J. Watt, one of the greatest Houston Texans of all time. I'm not going to be okay with just winning this division.
Yeah.
I need to be dominant.
Yeah.
I need to be a dominant football team, and I'm not going to settle for mediocrity. I'm not. Like, when they showed me that, oh, you're still at the top of the division. Okay, 2 of those teams have yet to win a game.
Yeah.
And, the Colts barely beat the Chicago Bears. So what's there to be excited about? Well, I'm excited that I'm atop of all the losers.
I feel you,
Like, we
man. I
have
feel you, man.
goals,
And
bro.
I'm feeling so happy that you're getting this out, man. I hope this feels like therapy to you, because that's what we got to do. And that's the reason we get together. We have these conversations. This is what I'm going to say. The Texans have not been good. In the last 2 games, they've had 23 penalties for 203 yards. That's a game's worth of offense for some teams. They haven't been good. And that is not what contenders do. Now, I watched a video from our good friend from ESPN, Paul Gallant, and I feel like Monday is the day that we all overreact. And he straight up said, don't tell me this team is Super Bowl contenders, because they're not. I'm not going to go that far, but let me tell you, Ruben.
Dude, they're not playing like a Super Bowl team right now, Nick.
I agree with you 100%. But let me explain to you, though, why I'm not really panicked about it. We've had this discussion, you and I. I know I'm an old head. You're the youngster of the group. So I'm going to try to add some perspective to this, man. I remember telling you in our first episode that I'm excited about the Texans. I'm optimistic about the Texans, but I'm also a realist and a Houstonian who has been in this position before. And the reason I'm not panicked is because I didn't place the same expectation on this team that everyone else did. As a matter of fact, if you go back and you watch some of my old videos, you even watch our first episode, I said, let's pump the brakes a little bit. There was a lot of, you and I talked about, week 18 of last season. The Houston Texans were one personnel decision from Shane Steichen away from us having a completely different conversation about the outlook of this team. Imagine if Jonathan Taylor is in that game, he makes the catch, he gets a first down, they score, and the Texans don't win the division. Are we still placing that same expectation we have now for them? If they didn't do what they did in the playoffs last season, probably not. But they were that close to us not having that expectation. So I tempered my expectation when I came into the season. I said pump the brakes. I said they could struggle early. And if they do struggle early, I don't want Texans fans to hop off the bandwagon, because we have a tougher schedule. We thought our division might be tougher. So far, it doesn't look like that's the case. But they do have tape on Slowick. They've got tape. And you think the NFL hasn't been listening to the national media fawn all over these Houston Texans and proclaim them the next coming, that they're the team most likely to beat the Chiefs? Everyone's heard that, bro. When they step up to the field and play the Houston Texans, they're bringing their A game. That's not making any excuses for this team, man. They absolutely have to do better. But I temper my expectations because I know that the team they are today in week 3 is not the team we're going to see in week 18. There's still, week 18. There are 14 more games, man. Let's pump the brakes. Let's chill. Don't get me wrong. They need to fix this. And if we continue to see them put this type of effort that they put in against the Vikings, bro, we're going to be talking about the draft a whole lot earlier than we wanted to. Believe that. But they need to take a really long, hard look in the mirror, man. They really, really do. My question to you, my friend, you've been a Texans fan since when? The beginning, pretty much?
The beginning.
You've gone through all of it. Is DeMeco Ryans the right type of coach to fix this? Can DeMeco Ryans go to Laramie Tunsil, who makes all this money, who has this attitude of, listen, man, we talked about these pre-snap penalties, and he's talking about their targeting. Bro, if you've been paying attention in the preseason, the referee said, yo, we're going to call this illegal procedure. If you're not on the line of scrimmage, we're calling it. Now, maybe if Laramie Tunsil had played in the preseason, he would know that. If he had showed up to camp, maybe he would know that. But there's no excuse in week 3, bro. They've been calling this since the first week of the season. They called it multiple times in this game. And I'm sorry, back-to-back illegal procedures, there's just no excuse for that. That being said, as upset and throwing your hat and all of that stuff as you were, is that the type of coaching that DeMeco Ryans needs to do? Because that's not his style, bro. Is his style the right style to get this fixed?
Oh, absolutely. And if it's not, then DeMeco is not that guy. If one guy can destroy, your locker room, destroy your culture, then, then DeMeco is just not who we think he is. But I have faith that DeMeco Ryans can get this situation under control. He has been changing this franchise ever since he stepped foot in the building.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt these are going to limit. You would just want to see DeMeco Ryans kind of get on him on the sideline, but to be honest with you, I don't think that's going to
It's not his
be,
style, bro.
that's just not going to be his style.
Yeah.
And that's okay with that, right? Do you want to see DeMeco Ryans like Callahan from Tennessee and cursing out Laremy Tunsil on the sideline? That's going to not, that's not going to make you feel well.
Yeah.
Laremy Tunsil is not going to respond well to that. These are grown men who we're talking about, by the way. So I definitely think DeMeco Ryans is the coach for this team, is the coach for this situation. It just needs to get handled.
Yeah, I think he has the right temperament. And I think as fans, we want, because I don't know if you watched his press conference today, but he was very calm, very collected. He answered all the questions, and he said straight up, we got to be better.
And maybe there was a conversation, man, because I haven't seen Laremy Tunsil tweet at all.
Yeah,
and I feel like we would have heard something by now.
Yeah. I think he's got the right temperament. Like you said, these are grown men. They're making a lot of money. They have egos. And first of all, let me say this. Laremy Tunsil is a very, very talented left tackle.
Elite pass blocker. His run blocking is above average, I would say. For the most part. I know this year I don't know if there's a lingering injury there. I'm not going to make any excuses for him. He's got to be better. I don't know that Titus Howard belongs on this team, to be honest with you, bro. I'm missing George Fant at this point, and I'm wondering what Blake Fisher looks like on that right side at this point. Hey, I understand, like we talked about the investment. Is DeMeco Ryans the type of coach, because he's a loyalty guy? He's a player's coach. He has relationships with all these players. Is he going to be able to make the tough decision of, hey, man, you're not producing, you're on the bench? That's the only thing I worry about with him. I don't want him to be rah-rah. I don't want him in people's face yelling. Listen, we had that with Bill O'Brien. We had Gary Kubiak, and everybody hated how nice of a guy Gary Kubiak was. Everybody wanted him to be Bill Cowher. So then we got Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien was a complete a-hole, and he didn't get anything accomplished here either. So I think DeMeco is the right guy, and I think that C.J. Stroud is the right leader for this team. He says the right things. His attitude, look, he said, I'm glad we got our ass kicked. Like, we needed it. And you know what? Let me ask you this. I know they all said the right things in the offseason, but do you think they were hearing the chatter about how good they are, and maybe it got to their heads a little bit? I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, we're 2-1. We're not 0-3.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really look at the game, and I mean, maybe it got to their heads. I mean, when you have the type of off season that you do, the draft that you do, of course, there's a lot. I mean, the new uniforms, of course, there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah.
But I would say that if it's affecting the quarterback, and it's not affecting the quarterback, it's, I could say the problem so far for this offense has been the O-line.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how we're just talking this way after one loss, but this loss was just so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And the fact that you barely squeaked by against Indy, you barely squeaked by against Chicago.
And that's the thing.
Of games are not going to happen against Detroit, Dallas, Miami, Baltimore, Kansas City. So,
Ruben, we said that. We said we can't ignore in our victories what we wouldn't ignore in defeat. So we talked about how the offensive line hasn't looked good all season, and we knew once there was a step up in competition. Now, I didn't think we knew it was going to be necessarily the Minnesota Vikings, but the Minnesota Vikings, at least at this point, they look like they're the real deal. They look like it against us, at least. So, and while I'm saying that, I know there's a lot of people in the sports radio landscape who probably don't like when their hosts refer to the teams as us or we. Let me just tell you, I'm that guy. I'm okay with doing it, because let me tell you this. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't put the name Houston in front of Texans. The Texans are Houston. Houston is the Texans. So when I speak of them, yes, I say we, I say us. I know it bothers some people, but it's cool. I'm going to keep doing it. But listen, man, I hope that I was worried about this. And here's the thing, man. We're, like you said, we're 2-1. We're not 0-3. And here's the deal. If Chicago would have been the team that everybody in the preseason was expecting them to be, if the Colts would have been the team that everybody that was expecting them to be. And that's why I said in the preseason, man, you don't win the Super Bowl in April. They got to play the games. But, you know, if everybody that on our schedule, it turned out to be what we thought they were, the Texans could have possibly started 0-3. As bad as they've played a couple of plays in the other direction, they could be 0-3, but they're 2-1. And I'm not making, like I said, I'm not making excuses. They're going to have to be better. Jacksonville is going to come in here next week. They just got embarrassed on Monday Night Football. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to want to try to take it to us. So I hope that the Houston Texans, I hope this was a wake-up call for them, man. And I just want fans to just stay calm. Let's not call for any coaches' heads yet. But like you said, man, that I don't even think Bobby Slowick's seat should be hot. I think we need to give him an opportunity to make the adjustment. Now, if we get midway through the season, towards the end of the season, and this offense does not look like what it's supposed to be, I'm not even going to say fire him, but I guarantee you the talk about him being a head coach is going to be out the window.
What if this offense, and knock on wood, right? What if this offense does not produce against Jacksonville?
I don't think you make a coaching change. Not in week 4, man.
No, like I said, I'm not firing anyone the first month of the season.
Yeah.
But I feel like your alarm meter is not like, as bright as the rest of ours.
No, it's not.
And
I know
I'm
it's
saying
not.
that if you go into a game against an 0-3 team at home and don't have a dominant performance on offense, you're going to have, once again, a lot of people saying, what's going on with this Houston Texan offense? Because everyone's healthy besides Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon might be there on Sunday. And if you don't have a good offensive performance, those chatters are going to be yells, are going to be screams.
For sure. And rightfully so. Let me say, even I know you and I said I had a different expectation for this team. Listen, man, when me and you first got together, you're talking about raising the Lombardi, and I'm with that. I believe talent-wise, this team is capable of being that good. But that wasn't the expectation I had for them. My preseason prediction for them.
But everyone's not like you, Nick. You're probably
I understand.
preaching to the 10%, right? The other 90% had us going to our first ever
freaking
AFC
out, right? And I understand
so I guess
that.
if you want to be right in that sense, then be right. But I'm seeing right now a horrible performance from this offensive unit.
Yes, even by my standard.
Weapons,
even by my standard, this game was terrible, so I'm not making excuses for it. My prediction at the beginning of the season was this was
like you're saying, oh, it's okay because my expectations were not as high.
No. I'm not saying it's okay. What I'm saying is I predicted this to be at best a 12-win team, at worst a 9 or 10-win team. Yesterday looked like a 9 or 10-win team. Now, I think they can improve, and I think they can become a 13-win team. But they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna have to take a long, hard look in the mirror. Man, what are you going to want to see in the immediate future that's gonna make you feel like you can back away from that panic button?
You got to see 30 points. You got to see this. I mean, that's it, bro. That's all we're waiting for. This defense has won you a game. This special team has won you a game. We need to see this offense win you a game.
Yeah.
And we have yet to see a full, complete 4 quarters from this Houston Texan offense. And this is not a baseball 165-game season, not a basketball 82-game season. Yep. You only have 18 weeks.
Yep.
17 really without the bye. And it needs to get going this Sunday against Jacksonville. Yeah. Your offense needs to wake up.
I don't disagree with you at all. And I'm not trying to take away the feeling of all of the Houston Texans fans who feel like you. And I'm not trying to be condescending in any way. I do not want this to come across like that. I'm keeping everybody from jumping off the bridge just yet. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing this, and we're going to be going through the ups and downs with this team all season, man. So we can't expand all of our energy right now, man. We got to save some because I still think it's going to be a wild season, man. I'm looking very much forward to this Jacksonville matchup, because we need to dominate Jacksonville. We got to, even because a bad team should be able to dominate Jacksonville. The Bills just hung 34 on them in one half. So we've got to be able to dominate that game. I agree with you 100%. But I like I said, the team that we're looking at right now is not going to be the same team that we see, come the end of the season. I trust this coaching staff because they haven't given me a reason not to yet. I'm gonna cut Bobby Slowick some slack. I'm gonna let him know, bro, you got to be better. I think he knows he's got to be better. I was encouraged by the fact that he gathered the team together. I don't remember I think that was the second quarter, or it might have been the third. He gathered that team together, and he tried to get them to refocus.
4 penalties in a row, I believe.
Yeah. He tried to get them to refocus. Yeah, so that was the second quarter. Bro, you know what? You know when I knew that game was going to go bad? When Sam Darnold fumbles the ball backwards.
Dude, yeah, that's
and a Minnesota Viking picks it up 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and still gains 8 yards. I was like, that's how this game's going to be today.
When you saw the penalty from Kaimi, you're like, oh, yeah, man, everyone's screwing up today.
It's not in the cards today. And they were, like you said, they were bad on every level. Offense, defense, special teams. Sims, I don't know what he was doing in the return game. Like, go north and south, bro. Like, this is not college football. I don't. It was just bad all the way around. They had a kickoff go out of bounds. They tried to stop a punt at the goal line, missed it, whiffed on it. So, and here's the deal, man. Like I said, I want to be critical of the defense. Camardi Lassiter, I said this before the game started. He has no business being man-to-man with Justin Jefferson unless there's a safety playing over the top. And even then, like, and zone coverage, he was okay. But we talked about it. I would have had Derek Stingley follow that man around the entire day. But like we said, who am I to judge? Because I wanted to be critical of the defense, but when I really watched the game, the offense put them in such terrible positions with the turnovers. The Texans had more possession time than the Vikings did. They gained more yards. It's just the turnover. I'm not trying to put a silver lining on a terrible game, but like they beat themselves more than the Vikings beat them. And that's just, yeah, that's a fact, man. That's not me making an excuse. That's not me trying to take anything away from the Vikings.
Which is why, Nick, like a lot of fans are reacting to this loss, the way it is. Because if we just lose by 3, all right, tip your cap. Minnesota, I see you in the Super Bowl, right? I'll see you then. But all these self-inflicted wounds, back-to-back double-digit penalties, it was ugly all around. And when Pargalan said, this does not look like a Super Bowl team right now, he's absolutely right.
No, he is.
Because Super Bowl teams do not have back-to-back games with 10-plus penalties. You had 7 by halftime, dude. Yeah. And they were all by the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Is any playoff team, is any Super Bowl team having 4 false start, illegal formations? Absolutely not. Now, once again, this team is not going to be the same in Week 18 that it is today. However,
we're in agreement on that.
There was a lot of hype for this game.
Yeah. It's okay to be mad now. You should be mad. Yeah.
Show us you are for real, Houston Texans. Go beat a team that you never beat before. And if we would have won this game, number 1 ranking in power, in power rankings, we would have been, this is your Super Bowl favorite, all this type of stuff. If you would have won this game, that's what you had. That's what you saw a lot of people saying. Same old Houston Texans,
and you would have a chance.
Teams can never beat the good teams.
Yeah,
and you're like, bro, like this is not the same old Houston Texans team. So
I don't think they are. Another thing is you would have had a chance to be boat racing the rest of your division too. You win this game, you go into Jacksonville, you have a chance to go 4-0 and have them at 0-4. And Jacksonville is really your only competition, at least supposed to be your only competition in this division. So here's the good news, man. The Bengals lost. The Ravens have only won 1 game.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. It sucks this week. And I'm glad you got to vent, man. I'm glad you got to get it out of your system. And you, Mr. 713, you stay busy doing your Texans content all day, every day. How many times do you think you've done that rant today? At least 3 or 4, right?
At least 3 or 4, man. But, it just goes to show, how much we love. We love this team.
Absolutely.
And, it's what's funny, Nick, is like a lot of other people are sounding like this. ESPN,
Mm-hmm.
people on Twitter. When you have these goals of getting to the Super Bowl, man, I think things like this matter just a little bit more. So
I agree with you. Can I say one thing though about that?
Go
And
ahead.
then I just want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
The Texans didn't place this expectation on themselves. Every time they were asked about the outside noise, they said that doesn't matter. What matters is what we do in this building. What matters is that we improve, we get better every day. Mm-hmm. It was really the media, based on the amazing season that CJ Stroud had, the amazing turnaround that this team made in just one season, the fact that they dominated the Cleveland Browns, #1 defense in the NFL, in the playoffs, and they played a good half of football against the Ravens, who ended up going to the AFC Championship game. Really, it was the media, and we kind of bought into it. And that's the only reason I said pump the brakes, man. Like, they can still be a great team. They don't have to come out and win 8 games in a row. I'm not making excuses. They look terrible, Ruben. I get it. But it's still early enough, and I trust CJ Stroud as a leader. I trust DeMeco Ryans as a leader.
Sure.
To right this ship. This is what I want next week. You remember the first 2 games of last season, CJ Stroud spent the entire time on his back. Mm-hmm. And then in week 3 versus a formidable Jacksonville defense, he didn't get sacked one time. Next week, I want a clean game. I want no pre-snap penalties. Really, if we can get no penalties at all, that would be great. But we can't have the stupid pre-snap penalties. Every time you get an illegal formation or you get a false start, you might as well have gotten a sack, man, because you're just moving backwards. And the Texans, that's the problem, man. They were moving the ball early, but when every time they bit themselves in the foot or shot themselves in the foot, they always saw themselves in 3rd and long, 3rd and 10 and plus. And it's just, you can't win football games that way. And DeMeco Ryan said as much. So next week, I mean, obviously I want them to win, but let's have a clean game. Because I think if they play a clean game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. So I look forward to us doing this show again in a week and having a much different tone to it, my friend. I love it. But I just want to remind all of our listeners, first of all, thank you to all of our supporters who got us to ESPN Houston in the first place. I want to shout out Joe George, the assistant program director of ESPN Houston, for giving Ruben and I this opportunity. And I want to remind you guys to please follow us on our other channels. I'm going to have our links in the description, but you guys follow 713 Houston Sports, Mr. 713 himself. He is 713 HOU Sports on X. He is 713 Sportscast on IG. Houston Sportscast on IG, 713 Houston Sports on TikTok. You'll find me at Houston Sports State of the Union, HSTTU Podcast on X. I am at Pod Host Nick on TikTok. Guys, it's going to be a great season. Let's get it out of our system today, and let's get ready for this Jacksonville Jaguars game in week 4. We're going to see you guys every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. I look forward to watching this episode with you guys in the live chat. ESPN is going to stream and premiere each of our episodes. We're linking up with the Athletically Declined guys. I want to shout them out. They've been so gracious and excited about us joining the ESPN family. Ruben, is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, man, I'm excited. And guys, just, be expecting, content like this every single week. Mm-hmm. When we say H-Town till we drown, we absolutely mean that.
100%. So guys, we are going to see you in a week's time. In the meantime, I want you to stay 10 toes down for the H. We love you. Good night.